talking about the.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it just takes all of us continuing to work it. Okay. Well then, I know Bettina would have reported on for communities of care. I can probably hold off on her report, but they had their work group meeting, and it was very successful. I thought they covered quite a bit of information. Okay, but let's just go ahead and jump then into our regular agenda items, which we've got item number 2, which is a proposal for an agreement between Layton City and, how do you say this? SIRQ? CERC?
Yeah, Michelle's doing that. She's not here.
She was here.
She was here. I didn't realize she wasn't.
We got her stuff loaded up.
She just had to run and grab a piece of paper real quick.
Oh, all right. Well then, we can circle back around. Yeah, we'll just go ahead, because I didn't even realize she left.
She's back.
She's back. But she's back.
She's quick.
If I could, while she's getting there, I was just telling Tyson, we received our $5 million grant for secondary meters today, as well as the approval for a $1.8 million loan for the remaining part of that. So we're going to be working on that, and we'll bring that back to you.
We'll
bring that back to you for approval as we.
Secondary water that going into a pool, this pool.
You don't want to swim.
You don't want to swim.
This is the best we can do.
Yeah, these guys provide way better water in our pools.
Go put some lines up on the pond up there, right? But don't do that. You can't say that because they will, or they have. Yeah, we wouldn't probably have to respond to so many calls either. Okay, Michelle, welcome. We're never excited to hear what you're saying.
Never good when you look down and have the wrong folder, so sorry.
You ran quick then.
I tried. All right, Mayor, Council, thank you so much for letting me be here today. I am here to present Resolution 2248. This is a resolution for acceptance of a proposal for an agreement between Layton City and CERT Construction, or Construction Manager General Contractor, or CMGC Services, for the 2 park shop facilities. You'll recall you should have had presentations on this before for these 2 projects.
Some more in depth than others.
Yeah. So this project is a 3-phase project. Phase 1 in the green was funded in the 2021-2022 fiscal year, and a portion of Phase 2 just received funding with this current fiscal year, and the second half of Phase 2 is scheduled for funding asked in the next budget year. The staff went out for a request for qualifications, and 2 companies responded. After evaluation, I don't know if you can see that, I'm sorry. After an evaluation of both the technical proposal that was received and the fee proposals that were received, you can see on that screen that CERC came out with a total score of 88.2 out of 100 points possible.
Question.
Yes.
So I know when you guys have done this before, you've been good about involving a variety of folks. So who all did you involve this time?
So I know that there were 6 individuals involved in the evaluation process. I was not one of them, so I don't know for sure who the 6 outside of Ryan and Joellen and David were. I can find out.
Well, I just like it when
I know that there were 6 of them.
You know, whether it be somebody off the different commissions or, you know, sometimes a council member. Okay. Okay, so CERC was chosen as they received the highest score, so they were chosen. This shows the fee schedule that was presented from CERC for the 2 pre-construction phases. And then the second part of the fee proposal was for their construction fee
And you can see they have a 4% construction fee for both phases. So with that, Layton City recommends that we adopt Resolution 2248, which authorizes the city manager to conduct negotiations and execute an agreement between Layton City and CERT Construction.
Questions?
Michelle, could you go back to the first slide that shows all the
Yes, of course.
site? Where, there on the right, it says 40, this, I guess that's Ellison, right?
Yes.
40 employee parking stalls, is that going to be gated off? Because that's prime pickleball parking and soccer parking and.
It is
Where is
gonna
that?
be,
On the, north of the
East
trees,
side.
where you have trees.
no, this right here will not be gated. The gates are along this kind of lighter yellow border. So these will be open for parking.
What's the plan for the parking for the pickleball complex? Is that,
I wish I had a visual of that. So the, just below down here is still some parking, and then this area right along here is slated for additional parking also.
Well, I think he's probably driving at whether it's gonna be covered, right? Because right now you're cutting the dirt.
Yeah, right now it's still slated just to remain as the dirt.
rock,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, eventually it will
same as above?
be paved, correct.
So you'll leave, so none of that will be paved when you do the completion of the,
Whatever it says.
building?
Road base and parking. I should read. Thank you. Like, what am I
Just
reading?
testing you.
Yeah, exactly.
Phase 2 says lot asphalted, so not till phase 2. Yeah. There's our answer, you're right. Okay, that's a good question though.
I just think if you're counting on that for employee parking, it might be tough. with Pickleball in the mornings or in the evenings.
That's true, it might be a race as to who gets there earlier, huh?
Yeah.
And whether it's like your case or.
Or Syracuse.
So,
you know, yeah.
Keys are clear.
We'll put out stickers.
Thank you.
I have a question, Michelle. So I noticed in the proposal that phase 1 and phase 2 have some overlapping periods of time. Is that's normal, I'm guessing? Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm just seeing here, phase 2, we'd have the parking lot areas completed. These 4 items are complete, but it looked like a lot of that can be going concurrently. I think it was April or so I looked
Yeah,
at for a majority of that.
correct,
Okay.
correct. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
easy peasy, thank you.
Well, the same fence goes all the way around, and then you just have gates at each side.
Yes,
So they get in and get out.
The cement wall's already up.
yeah, the cement
That's
wall's
what
there.
it is. It's this area that we're looking at there is where the cement wall is.
Yeah. I know.
Okay.
Some of them may overlap.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll do item number 3, which is our municipal code, Title 15. Mr. Jackson and Colburn are both going to present this probably, or mainly Mr. Jackson?
Terry's gonna jump in when he wants, but I'm gonna talk about our floodplain prevention ordinance and try not to put you to sleep.
Our what?
The flood damage prevention ordinance, so
Flood?
flood.
Not your pants either.
Well,
I knew where you were going with that.
no.
Floodplain maps have been worked on, for maybe some of you that are newer. Well, I don't know how many of you were here in 2010, but we started this project in 2010. So let me go through a little bit of history. The FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, has the National Flood Insurance Program, which Layton City is a part of, and part of that, they do these flood insurance rate maps, and so I put all the acronyms over there in parentheses for you. If I use them, I apologize, but the State Division of Emergency Management is in charge of administering a lot of these programs for FEMA through the state, and then it passes on to us. So we were part of this flood insurance program all the way back in 1982. The code that we're amending tonight is Title 15, Chapter 28, which is adopted back then. And so over time, they kind of do these cycles where they update these firms. They call it flood insurance rate maps. The last ones were updated in 2007. Essentially, they were digitized copies of the old maps, but they didn't have any substantial changes to them. So there was no actual engineering analysis or study that was done. In 2010, Davis County, there was a Davis County flood risk study that was initiated. The final letter of determination was issued on March 15th of 2022. So you can see it's been a long 12 years. The effective date of these new maps, the outcome of this study is that this new study creates these new firms, and they are effective September 15th of 2022. So what did we do? This is a little bit tough to read, but it's actually 2 pages. We sent out some flyers or some fact sheets for those people that might be in there, but the study area is all of Davis County. And so I'm going to jump over to a different file if I could real quick so we can actually see this. But the timeline was we started the study in 2010. They took 4 years to do a bunch of data development. In 2014, early 2014, they initially released some data. Layton City didn't agree with that data, and so we actually filed an appeal through the appeal process, hired an expert in this area to help us with that appeal, and the appeal was upheld in 2015, and as such they basically had to kind of almost start over with the correction, we'll call it, of those numbers. And so between 2015 and 2019 there was more data redevelopment, and then in 2019 there was a new or revised preliminary issued. In that revised preliminary issuance, they had an appeal period in 2020, and that was basically the time frame when we had notified all of the residents here in Layton that were being affected by that. And then there was a second revised preliminary in 2021 because there was 2 areas south of Layton that were deemed to need additional study. And so essentially since November of 2020, Layton's kind of been waiting for the remainder of the study to be finished. That appeal period ended last year in December of 2021, and so that's when the final process was completed, and so March 15th is when that letter of final determination was issued with the effective date of next September here coming up. So what does that all mean for us? Basically, it means that we need to adopt these new maps that are being issued because they are now the effective maps that FEMA requires us to have. So what do the maps do? They establish what we call the special flood hazard areas, or the FSHAs, and they are defined as the area that would be inundated by a flood having a 1% chance of being equal in any given year. A lot of people call them the 100-year floods or the 1% annual chance of flood. We're trying to move away from the 100-year flood thing because it confuses a lot of people that they think it could only happen once every 100 years, but that's not the case. It's really, there's a 1% chance of it happening every year. So statistics for us, originally in the FEMA special flood hazard areas in the 2007 firms, there was 58 properties or structures, I'll call them. It's not properties, it's actual buildings. In the new firms, there's only 18, so there were 47 that were removed. There were 7 added, and that is due to the fact that flood risk does change based on development, based on how the flood channels erode, things like that, and move over time. So I'm going to jump to a couple maps really quick just to show you.
Maybe a comment where talking about the reason that's important is because if your house has been designated, or your property has been designated by FEMA as a floodplain, even if there's no water in sight, then you have to acquire federal flood insurance, which is very expensive. And so this is a great process, a benefit for the Layton residents, because we push to have a very accurate, modern approach taken. And so a lot of people who were previously paying required to pay flood insurance or their mortgage, now we're not having to do that. So that was the reason that the city took such a keen interest, is because these guys knew from experience that there were multiple locations that were not in the floodplain and would not be in the floodplain. So it's not just a government thing, it has real impacts on residents. You're probably aware of that, but.
Well, and the other thing too, Alex, I mean, that these guys need to know is, thanks to Steve and a lot of the engineers, they're the ones that actually went through all those maps and supplied the maps, because their maps were not updated, right? I remember you guys going through all that.
A lot of data, a lot of
Yeah, you did.
information to make sure that they were accurate. And I'll show you a few of the things that we've seen and kind of what there is. But there is this tool, this is FEMA's map. As you zoom in on this map, it's a nice tool, but as you get closer in here, this is the kind of stuff you see, and I can interpret that, but it takes me a long time, and the most, average homeowner is not going to be able to look at this and understand what all the lines are. But you're supposed to be able to hit this button and to put a pin, and when it works great, but it probably will tell me they can't find anything. But it tells you what was there and what the change was, and anyway, there's just a lot of stuff here. So the city has taken this same data and we've put it onto our own map for our residents to be able to see, and basically it simplifies it down to what is the special flood hazard area and the 100-year, what they will understand is the 100-year floodplain. And so you can see the areas outlined in kind of this bluish area. That's the 1% chance, or SFHA, and then this is the actual floodway, and that's what you would consider where the water would be flowing with actual velocities. So as you look at some of these areas, I'm going to jump over here to this area just south of Layton Parkway. So the green properties are properties that were in the 2007 study and have been removed from the 2022 maps. The blue areas, or the blue properties, are properties that were in the 2007 area and remain in the 2022 area. And then the yellow properties are the properties that are being added into that area. And so there is some small, and it's kind of tight. And so banks do have the option. The city doesn't get involved in this, but banks do have the option to say, hey, you're close enough that we want to require it, and it's a contract between the homeowner and them. But as far as the FEMA requirement goes, these houses in green would no longer be required to purchase flood insurance. The ones in the blue and yellow would. And then just as an example of some of the information that was cleaned up, if I could jump over to here. This is an area where, if you look at the previous, I'll turn this on. So that's the old flood map that was in 2007. It was digitized, but it's probably data from long ago. This is the actual location of the creek. So all of these homes have now, all these homes have now been removed, and this home right here is the only one that's going to be affected by that. So anyway, so we do have this tool available for our residents if they need to use this instead of get involved in all the FEMA stuff. But the FEMA one is the official document, and so we will refer them to that if there is questions or changes. So what are we doing tonight with the ordinance? There is a model ordinance from the state of Utah that the Division of Emergency Management wants us to kind of align with, and so we've done we took the opportunity, since we need to update this date, to also update kind of definition, statutory authority, and stuff like that. But the real key one tonight is that section 15.28.060. You're adopting these new firms that are effective September 15th, 2022, and those will be the required ones through the ordinance. And then the other key changes are just definitions. We've reorganized some of the wording in that document to more closely match the state model ordinance, and then just kind of update it through the National Flood Insurance Program requirements as well for record keeping and what the city engineer needs to be able to do, and then the standards for flood hazard reduction. So that's really all I have to say. Is there any questions I can try and answer for you?
Yeah, those homeowners that where it used to go across their home, have they been notified, or will they be?
Yeah, so back in the 2019, this flyer was actually provided to everybody that was either being impacted negatively or positively, I guess I'll use those terms, but everybody was notified back when these preliminary maps were issued, and then there is an ability for them to receive additional information if they need it. So we feel like we've done a pretty good job of trying to make sure people know what was coming and what was.
Heard about this, right?
That was the last time these flyers went out, so we can, and we're planning to probably send out to these 18 homes that are gonna remain in it. We're gonna send this out again to them. That was our plan.
But I think Tyson's asking about the ones that,
If they wouldn't be required for them now.
yeah. that don't-
So, yeah, we can send those out to them. The reality is they were notified that they were coming out. The bank still, that's gonna be the tricky part, is if they have a mortgage, the bank can still require it, whether or not the FEMA people will.
But if they have the letter, that would help them in their case.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah,
issue, is
so-
they need to really contact.
And they
their
have access to
shareholders.
that.
Yeah.
All I gotta do is come.
Yeah, we have a list, and I have that in a spreadsheet, and I'm happy to re-email people and make sure that they know it's coming.
I think that's what we're trying to say. I mean, as elected officials, we're trying to say, hey, let
Yeah,
both
that's
sides know.
Okay, we'll send those emails out, or excuse me, those letters out. They should get them here shortly.
Okay. Good.
Okay,
That's good.
any other questions I can answer on that one?
Thanks for your hard work on it.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Good job killing it. I mean, I'm guessing that the individual property owners don't really have the right to appeal it until they've made a final determination. So the city's the one that has the authority to do that, until they make a final determination. That's kind of a Gary question.
Yeah, well, they did have the option during these preliminary, once it was preliminary issued, they could have
On their own.
tried to individually take on some of the properties, but the level of appeal that we did was definitely warranted. I think it would have put almost 300 properties into the floodplain,
Yeah.
instead of taking out the 47 that we did.
And the difficulty is, as an individual, it would be very difficult to come up with the information and data. And that's the reason the city stepped in and at considerable cost, actually.
I was gonna ask, because the 300 going into it makes it more cost effective, because it has a direct impact on people's ability to pay their mortgage, because do the banks get notice of this? So that if, let's say those
Yeah.
yellow houses, right?
So-
They have a current mortgage.
The banks all know about this because they have their people that do this, and I know from experience in 2007, when those other maps were made, we were inundated by calls from banks and from homeowners that said, they're telling me I gotta buy flood insurance, and the banks are saying, I need you to tell me if they're in the floodplain, and so I anticipate next month we're gonna get some calls, but hopefully it's only less than 18.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we send them the information
Yeah.
and it'll be even less than that.
At the
Require to do that, the homes in the yellow, does the
So
bank
the
have
yellow
ability to do that?
and blue will be required by FEMA if they have the prior requirements, but the green will be.
So they
out.
can become more, they can be less stringent, but not on the yellow. They have to have it.
And they can still, anybody can purchase flood insurance, and we're part of the NFIP so that it is a reduced cost. And then if you're not in the floodplain, I understand that even if you are in the floodplain, it is a risk-based assessment, because living adjacent to Case Creek versus the Mississippi River are totally different things. And FEMA has revised how they calculate those fees so that if you're really at big risk, then there's a different fee setup than if you are less risk. But yeah, we'll mail those out again and make sure everybody gets those.
Some people may have sold homes and
That's
other
true.
people don't realize.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, very good. I guess you
I get to do
you
the
get the
next
next
one
one
here,
too,
right?
so.
So yeah, the city engineering division maintains development guidelines and design standards, and so they are adopted by ordinance. I think, right, Gary?
They are.
Just want to make sure we adopt them by ordinance, they become part of our ordinance, and then anybody who develops in the city needs to follow those. So we have basically two components of that. There's written standards, and then there's standard plans for public facility construction. So those are the drawings that we use to kind of depict what the facility needs to be. So These updates and revisions are necessary on occasion to meet current construction standards, regulations, and also city needs. And one of those this time is that we have just acquired Case Creek irrigation, and so we need to update our standards to include secondary water in that. So the key updates is that we added an entire section for the city-owned secondary water systems. We've really tried to standardize on those, and they're very similar to the Case Creek and the Weber Basin at Davis Weber Canal Company's standards, but they're specific to Layton so that we get what we need to be able to manage the system. Traffic impact study section, the biggest thing there was that we updated the threshold number for the when it triggers needing to have a traffic impact study based on the latest edition of the trip generation manual. So there is a new edition that is all included in there. Dedication plat lot line adjustments we've adjusted to coincide with the planning department's ordinances for a 5-foot rear lot line public utility and drainage easement. These were previously 10 feet on each side, and those are paid now that utility companies are not using those rear lot lines for most of their utilities. They're out in the front, so it's really becoming better to have those 5-foot public utility drainage easements for the drainage situations that we have. On the street widths, we've clarified the width standards and definitions a little bit better to kind of clarify what a public street, private private drive, private alleyway, those types of things would be. Casing, go ahead.
I have a question on that. I read that, and it was 26 feet for a private, or for the alleyway?
Yeah, the requirement is that there needs to be 26 feet of right-of-way, let's see, 26 feet of pavement for that. That's the standard width that we're seeing on these rear-loaded developments for the townhomes. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Boy, I was gonna say, if you have a truck, you can't make those bends to get into your garage too easy with that. But then,
It could be a challenge, but usually we do have kind of a 7-foot PUE spacing behind those to be able to, they can turn off onto. But I don't know, Chad, have you had any complaints about that width for?
26 is actually bigger than a lot of the developers would like us to have. They've pushed us for lower, so we've tried to hold that line on the fire access for those. With the, as Steve said, we usually have a little bit of a freeboard with the utility easements that we have in there as well. Usually, they don't always have a full driveway, but usually there's a little bit of a return on those buildings. One of the things you're gonna see in the next few weeks, we've got private street standards coming forward that are gonna codify some of these things even more than what Steve's describing. And in that case, we've adjusted the minimum separation between rear-loaded units to give us a little more space to make sure we can make those turns. Just to give you a little context, 26 feet is bigger than your standard space between two parking lot aisles. So that's a 24-foot space between two. If you have a 90-degree parking lot, that'd be a 24-foot space. So 26 feet is a little bit
did your
bigger.
truck make it?
It'd be the size of these out here. So.
I don't park in parking lots.
You're diagonal.
No, I was gonna say, I walk past a new development that's being built on 17th South, and I don't think my wife could get her Nissan in the garage. So 26 feet is favorable, I think, compared to some that I've seen.
Yeah, we're being pushed for smaller, but we've been holding that line for quite a while.
We just,
Is there a big demand for those? I know, I won't get off topic here, but. Never mind, let's wait for another day.
the trucks.
Yeah.
On my truck, I just use the sides to scoot the other cars.
Push people out of the way. Yeah,
We don't have
crossings of freeways and highways. We found that as UDOT's kind of built here in the city that we maybe have lacked that requirement. We've been able to encourage and require them to do it, but we wanted to just make sure there was no question that if you're crossing a freeway or a highway with limited access, that we could never, we're never going to open cut I-15, right? So we make them put in a casing pipe, and then we put the pipe that carries the water or sewage inside that so that we can slide that pipe out and we don't have to deal with that. So,
Is that essentially that corridor?
what's that?
Is that the corridor? Is that the same
that there will be a situation like that.
You were requiring them to do that?
Yeah, we've got several crossings on Highway 89 and several down on West Davis that we're gonna have those casings in. It's just an added additional way for us to be able to maintain that line without being, if we had to cut I-15, we'd have to spend, I don't even know how much to try and do that. It's just, they would just basically tell us to bore a whole new pipe underneath the freeway, and the cost of doing that are astronomical.
So how do you identify the lines then if they're in all metal casing? Like if you have multiple lines by each other?
Well,
Just
so,
by the plot plan?
yeah, by the plans, and then, water lines don't have manholes on them, so we can trace those with tracing wire, and then there's manholes on each side of the casings that we require to be installed, so we can access those and take care of that.
So does that not include agriculture, water?
No, if it was a storm drain pipe, it would be, reinforced concrete pipe, and we don't typically put those in casings.
The standards are
Yeah,
higher for that.
Yeah.
So when Case Creek went under I-15,
There's a casing, so you bore the casing in, and then there's the hole, and then you slip the pipe in with what they call casing spacers that are attached to the pipe to hold the pipe in the center of the casing.
okay, because I was gonna say, I remember that place.
UDOT's crews have installed probably 7 or 8 of those up on the Highway 89 project for our water line crossings that have had to be relocated, and then there's some land drain, storm drain sewer down on West Davis, and the sewer and the water are being put in casing as well.
So high pressure secondary like Case Creek would be.
Those would be part of that, yeah. If the city was going to own them. The reality is if you're gonna cross after UDOT has built the road, they're gonna require you to put the casing in, but we wanted to make sure that if UDOT decided to move our stuff, that they would also be required to put it in casing so that they aren't leaving us a problem in the future.
Does Union Pacific require something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, sometimes it is the most effective way of building something, but it's not always something that's preferred because it is expensive. So. And then we've updated our standard plans to kind of match all of those written standards. So I don't know if there were any questions. That's really all I have for our standard plans. It's kind of a routine thing. That one big one, like I said, is the secondary water system was added so that we can get that installed and built the way we're planning on it. So.
You mentioned that we received money for the secondary system.
So the secondary water meter grant, yeah, the ARPA funds, there was $250 million in ARPA funds that were allocated at this last legislative session. They awarded, I believe, 70 different projects with funding for ARPA grant money. We received $5 million for that, and then there's also and that covers 70% of the project cost, and then there's also a loan that we can receive from the Division of Water Resources for $1.8 million that would then be paid back over 15 years at 1%. So,
and that would cover?
That covers most of the rest of the project costs. It's about $300,000 that the city needs to come up with part of that matching program, and then we would pay that loan back over 15 years.
Are we doing anything tiered secondary water right now?
Anything tiered?
Yeah, like culinary?
Not right
No,
now.
not culinary tiered. I
No.
mean, like secondary, is it still just, they're paying $200 or whatever?
It's based on their lot size.
Yeah, we-
So
yeah.
the size of the lot, they have.
So
a
we
base
really
rate.
haven't started using anything that's in the ground.
As far as the meters?
Yeah.
No, not yet. There is a component of that grant, and that requirement is that we have to provide a monthly water report, or we have to bill based on the consumption on the meter, and so that is something that we're going to provide and be in compliance with.
We'll wait till we have so many meters in it.
Yeah, once you have the meters in, then you're able to tell what each individual
Right.
person's using. And if you chose to, you could establish tiers, like we do on the culinary side for abusers versus heavy users versus
Yeah.
average users. Right now, there's no way to track that, and so it's on the honor system, but that's,
So right now, it's, yeah.
That's the point of the meters, is
Right.
that when people know what they're
Eventually,
using,
we'll be able to do that.
and drive the conservation much more significantly.
As the legislature says, they're looking at, they've seen conservation without changing the cost. Just by knowing how much
Oh,
you're
yeah.
So that's the hope, I think, from the legislature, is not changing the pricing and seeing the benefit, the conservation benefit.
Yeah, we were basically seeing that in our metering, here, I think the numbers were 30%, 35% drop in the usage just per meter. Was it?
Yeah, they're seeing anywhere from 30 to 40% drop because people are being
They're watching
informed of what they can use.
They know that somebody else knows what they're using.
So we anticipate that it'll be really effective for people to understand how much they're using. And then the new meters that we're planning to put in, they will have that ability to be read remotely and then provided hourly meter data that we're hoping to get on a portal for people to use.
Terry, are they those meters you don't read? With, I mean, it's not going to get out automated. Yeah.
Hey Steve, I just have one quick question on the table 1.2 with the changes to acreage and square foot per project. I
Yeah.
think you said these were updated based on current standards.
Yeah.
The only one that looked way off was at the very bottom on government offices. The square footage used to be 9,000 and the change was to 27,000. All the others seemed like they were within, a decent range. Is that a typo or is that really?
I don't believe so, but I'll double check it, make
Okay.
sure that it's correct. Like I say, sometimes when they do these IT counts, they end up updating them and things change drastically, but other times they don't. So I'll double check that.
Can I make a request? If I could, would you mind continuing that item on the agenda? And not to a date certain, but just continue it. There's a couple of new noticing requirements that came out with the most recent version of state law. And so we need to make sure that those are met. And I was looking at it, thinking that we probably need to make sure that a public hearing is required. And then
On the development guide, standard guide?
So this has not been advertised as a public hearing, that's my fault, to see that, make sure it's.
I was gonna ask that as a procedural
I
question.
don't have that.
And
Both
then,
of these ordinances, do ordinances not generally need a public hearing? Because they're both
I didn't
open.
have- I
not
didn't
unless
have the
state
work
law
meeting.
requires it. But in this particular case, they changed the state law, it became effective in July 1st. I think it's July 1st, but it requires a public hearing, and it also requires that anybody in the queue be given notice. So we'll make sure that that happens.
You would not want to put it on the
Continue,
consent
that would be
items.
great.
Okay.
Yeah, if it requires it in the law, then you have to do that. Typically, land use ordinances do require that.
Hold the legislature looking out for.
Do we want to discuss it at all out there, or just pull it?
Just pull it,
Okay.
or not pull it, but just continue it.
Yeah.
And we will refile it as a public hearing and give the notice to those meetings. I apologize to you, I should have looked at that. I knew that they'd made that change, but I'll blame it on my two cohorts here that come up to the legislature all the time.
They should have caught it.
They didn't help you this time, huh?
Gary
Yeah,
just,
it's summer recess, so.
Gary just did that to let us know he's mortal.
Okay, well, we only have like 3 minutes.
Sorry.
Easy.
Oh,
Yeah.
easy, okay, that's
This is
yeah, go for
This is
it.
a conveyance of two insignificant parcels, unless you guys talk. These are two insignificant parcels. There's a definition code that tells what a significant parcel is. These don't meet that. There's a little triangle piece you can see here. There's another piece that was conveyed by Wasatch Integrated as a potential access. If you've been out to the site, you'll notice there's about 30 feet of grade change between this point and this point, so that access is not feasible. So this parcel was just a remnant parcel that was left over after dedication for the road on Fairfield that was just squaring off an existing parcel. So there's a amended plat that's scheduled to come forward. These were caught as they were preparing that amended plat. These were still shown as city ownership. The amended plat will include those, should you approve this conveyance to jail properties that you probably, if you've been up there, you've seen they're really going strong on a building right here. They poured the tilt-up panels, waiting for those to be ready to tilt up at some point, but we are recommending that you approve this conveyance of these two insignificant parcels. That was 1.5 months ago.
That was, very good. Okay. Any questions? I'll wait till next meeting, okay? Now we have 1 minute in the other room. So we'll just go to the other room. Okay? Motion to adjourn? Okay, thank you. You guys want to vote on that?
When I called for flood insurance, they work out the United Flood Insurance, because they would have to have all the houses.
Okay, well, let's go be on time again then.
And the only reason I would want flood insurance is because for some reason in our little area.
Way old.
And now there's another one behind my house. For the first time since '86, I had underground water in my backyard.
I opened this one my
Well, when I like sometimes you like up your sewer insurance, sudden insurance, home insurance, home insurance, you know, that's what all comes around like this.
We are starting fairly close on time, so thank you, council, for being prompt here and for being able to cover our items in a short manner in our work meeting. So thank you. As customary, we'll call the meeting to order, and we have a new month, so therefore our honoree to be able to be in charge of our pledge and the prayer is now Councilmember Dave Thomas's turn. So, Councilman, sorry.
It's a long title for Dave. If we'll all stand, I'll take care of the Pledge of Allegiance and then the prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father in heaven, we're indeed grateful to be gathered at this time in a council meeting and pray that thy Spirit may attend us. We're thankful for the opportunity which we have as servants to try and do the things which are right for the city and for those involved. We're thankful for the opportunity that as we prepare ourselves, that we may be able to do so in a righteous and a good manner that is pleasing to those who it affects. We ask for thy guidance. We ask for thy help, that we may understand the things which we are doing and be able to vote in a way which is needed to be done. And these things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Thank you very much. Council, we have 3 sets of minutes that we need to approve. So I'll look for, first off, is there any corrections to any of the minutes? Okay, seeing that there's no corrections, then I'll look for a motion for approval. Yep.
I move that we approve the minutes for the council work meeting, April 7th, 2022, the council strategic planning work meeting from April 14th, 2022, and the Layton City Council meeting from July 7th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the minutes as written and stated. So all of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to our municipal announcements. So council, do any of you have any municipal announcements you'd like to share?
I have a few. In the way of arts, as you know, Davis Arts Council streams free movies on Friday nights. This Friday, they're streaming Sing 2, and my household's very excited about that. Also on Sunday, Sugar Time, the group Sugar Time will be at the Kinley Amphitheater. Both of these events are at 7 p.m. And another thing I wanted to announce is OPA is having their annual summer event, and usually it's at the Kinley. This year, it's going to be at the Layton High School Auditorium, and that show is Matilda. And it begins on next Thursday, August 11th. They'll have 6 shows, I believe 6 shows from the 11th through the 20th. So you can go to their website, that's On Pitch Performing Arts, and you can get tickets for that. And that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, second to the Matilda, my little niece is Matilda.
Oh, sweet.
So we're excited for her. She's been practicing her lines at every family gathering. She's been going to, so she's really into it. So we're excited to see her. So
that's
Do you
great.
have flowers? Okay. I've learned enough through 30 years of watching plays, bring flowers. That's about all I remembered.
Mayor, I changed my mind when I heard a whisper over my right ear, but Fest is going on every Friday evening, 5:30 to dusk. Come out for food trucks, entertainment, and fun.
Excellent. And also, I'll just make a quick announcement too for the 9/11 Davis Remembers. That will take place at the, what's the old Davis County Fairgrounds or Legacy Center. And, they're gearing up strong for that, along with our Community Action Council is put together quite a list of service projects that they want to accomplish that Saturday before Labor Day so that we can, no, it would be the Saturday after Labor Day, excuse me, so that we can continue that tradition. I mean, we had a really good turnout last year and a lot of good camaraderie, so I'm glad to see that all the interfaith councils working together to push that forward again this year. So watch for those projects on Just Serve, as well as in any of your faith-based meetings. Just know that that will be discussed. Okay, Councilman Thomas?
I'd just like to make mention that in the past month, we've had our July 4th, our July 24th, as well as the light parade, even though that's part of the 24th. And everything that I saw was pretty well attended, pretty well done. A lot of things that could have been problems were resolved before they got to be problems. So kudos to the parks and recreation as well as the public works who did a lot of work to, make sure there weren't cars all over and everything. And I just like to say kudos to the city for, running good programs, and they do.
They do. And I was going to say, I know we had a lot of our first responders there too to protect us.
Sure.
And on top of that, I will just quickly say thank you, council, for being good sports on the light parade. You made very good patriotic dinosaurs, and I appreciate that. Okay. And a great margarita, yeah. So, yeah, well, we'll practice. That's true. Okay, let's go ahead and move on with our council meeting here. I know I don't have any verbal petitions or presentations this meeting. And citizen comments, I don't believe we have any comments either. So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed down to our consent items. And we'll start off with our first consent item, which is a proposal for an agreement between Layton City and CERC on the construction of some new shops for us. And Michelle Howard is going to present this project to us. So Michelle?
Well, Mayor and Council, once again, thank you for letting me be here with you today. I am here to present Resolution 2248. This is a resolution accepting the proposal for an agreement between Layton City and CERC Construction for Construction Manager General Contractor, or CMGC, services for the two park shop facilities. These park shop facilities are here at Commons Park, and then a second one at Ellison Park. The city did a request for qualifications, and after the technical proposals and fee proposals were evaluated, CERC Construction received a total score of 88.2 out of 100 points. And so with that evaluation, staff recommends that the council adopt Resolution 2248, which authorizes the city manager to conduct negotiations and execute an agreement between Layton City and CERC Construction for CMGC services of the two park shop facilities.
Council, do you have any questions? I know we covered it in the work meeting, but do you have any additional questions?
Madam Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Michelle, just thinking, we have two proposals. Is that rare just to only receive two?
Right now, it's not so rare.
With everybody busy and issues with supply chain and
That's kind of how the
materials.
last few ones have been.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. You did a great job, and thank you for presenting for us tonight.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on to item number B, which is an amendment to our municipal code regarding the floodplain prevention, and Mr. Terry Colburn will be presenting that for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Bring before the council ordinance 2219, the amendment to Title 15, Chapter 28, Flood Damage Prevention. Layton City became a participant in the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, in 1982. The city adopted Title 15, Chapter 28, Flood Damage Prevention, as required by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, which designates the flood-prone areas within the city, as well as places regulations that save lives and minimize damages that could occur to structures and property in a flood situation. FEMA has released a new study updating the flood mapping within Davis County and the city. The NFIP requires that all participants be in compliance with the updated mapping and any associated regulations as of September 15th, 2022, in order to maintain their participant status within the NFIP. In addition to regulating flood mapping and flood damage prevention, the NFIP program allows the citizens of the cities with a participant status designation to purchase flood insurance at the rate regulated by the program. The proposed amendments to Title 15, Chapter 28, flood damage prevention, will allow the city to remain in compliance with NFIP and FEMA guidelines and regulations, as well as maintain our participant status. Staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2219.
Okay. Any additional questions? Very good. We'll go ahead and continue on, and I take it you'll be presenting the next item.
Yes, Mayor, on item C, I think it's been recommended that we pull that. We found out from our attorney that we need to do some noticing, so I recommend that we pull item C from the agenda, and we'll bring it back at a later date after we've done the noticing requirements.
Okay, I accept that, and thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to.
Mayor, can I just make a comment? We were kind of in a hurry at the end, and Councilman Roberts asked a question regarding what needed to be advertised and what doesn't. In the zoning world, any zoning regulation does need to be advertised at least 10 days in advance, whether it's a public hearing, the first public hearing on the item, or whether it's a public meeting on the item. And so by state law, the notice section of the zoning code requires that occur. Anything outside of the zoning ordinance, there would have to be some specific guidance as to what time period needed to pass before you'd have a public hearing on, for example, sign ordinances. Some of those are outside of the land use regulations, believe it or not. They're regulated by UDOT regulations. Unless there's a specific time period for noticing up before a public hearing, it really is up to the city to notice at least up to 24 hours in advance. But we usually notice at least 10 days before is what we try to do when we have a public hearing. Public meetings are just 24 hours typically, but so thank you for the question, just to be able to clarify. But
Well, and I appreciate the consistency too, as far as the 10 days. I mean, I know we adjusted that time frame last year, and so I'm glad that we're adhering to that so that we're being consistent. So thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number D, which is a approval for a conveyance with Layton City and JL Ventures, and Mr. Chad Wilkinson will be presenting that information to us for Resolution 22-50.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as one other point of additional clarification, there was some new guidance in state law. These are actually not inside the zoning ordinance itself, but they're development regulations, and that's why that continuance was needed. It's not, our zoning ordinance is Chapter 19, but these are now, we now extend that noticing to development standards, development regulations, so that's why this is a new thing. So this, just looking at this conveyance, just to bring you up to speed on the reason why this is before you, the code actually has very specific language related to significant parcels of land. There's a definition that tells us what significant parcels of land are. They have to meet certain criteria, such as being large enough to build on. That's one big one. It can also be a parcel that if you were to convey it, it would require the change of the zoning of that property. So those are probably the two biggest. There's some other little ones that can apply that would potentially create a significant parcel. In this case, both of these parcels do not qualify as significant parcels. Neither of them are big enough within the zone to build a structure, and there's no change in the zone required for these parcels, so they can be considered insignificant parcels. The parcels just shown on the map are adjacent to the existing Janicki building. You can see that building up here in the top of the screen, Keomac across the street. This is Fairfield Road running along the right-hand side of that, 3500 North running along the bottom portion. The development, you can kind of see just briefly or just very lightly there underneath that white line work is the development that JL is the property owner of this property. They're currently working on this development. There are several pad sites that have been identified. One of those is currently under construction right in this location with a 100,000 square foot building. As part of the reconfigurations of the parcel, the property owner, JL Properties, has approached the city to record an amended plat. And as that process was being worked through, it was discovered that these two little parcels were still within city ownership. Just to give a little background on both of these parcels, this small triangle parcel was it was conveyed as part of the Fairfield Road dedication. You can kind of see that alignment. This was a squared off parcel that with that curved alignment just had a little bit left over. You can kind of see how that would work. That was a rectangle parcel before, and that little curve caused there to be just a tiny remnant parcel there. The other one was actually dedicated by Wasatch Integrated Waste Management. This was originally deemed to be a place that could potentially be an access for this property. As further review occurred on the property and as development plans started to take place, that grade changed. There's about a 30-foot difference in grade between the roadway and where they would need to get to develop these pads. And it was just deemed to be unfeasible to have an access point at that point. So as we've looked at both of these, they do both make sense to convey to the adjacent property owner as part of this plat. We are recommending that the council convey these parcels through those quitclaim deeds that are attached to the report, and be happy to answer any questions if I can. And that is Resolution 22-50.
Council, any questions? Well, easy going tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, that concludes our consent items. So I will look for action regarding the 3 items that were presented as far as adoption. If someone would like to make that motion, and if you could just read out your resolution or ordinance number.
Do you need a motion to hold the item C, or is that the mayor's prerogative to just pull it?
I believe it's, yeah, I can make that. Okay. So, yeah.
The mayor can just pull that off.
Okay. Then Madam Mayor, I would make a motion that we accept the consent items A, Resolution 22-48, resolution or consent item B, Ordinance 22-19, and consent item D, Resolution 22-50.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the consent items as presented, striking item C. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our consent items. We'll now move on to our public hearing. So with that, we're looking at a rezone request. Mr. Chad Wilkerson will present the information to us.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a rezone request for 3049 West Gentile Street from agricultural to R110, single-family residential zone, Ordinance 22-11. As background, this is the parcel shown in that little red dot. It is 3049 West Gentile. You can kind of see some of that surrounding land use. Oops, the other way. Here on this slide, it is agriculturally zoned currently. Vacant parcel, undeveloped parcel, I should say, to the south. Also some agricultural zoning to both the west and east, and then to the north, existing single family, and we've got a little one of our rare R2 zones where we've got some kind of duplex development just to the north there. So this is this parcel is about 1.2 acres. This parcel is proposed for a 3-lot subdivision if this zone change should be approved. As context, I'm going to keep going the wrong direction. I can't really zoom in very well, but just to show you on the map, this is an existing home. That existing home would remain on this western portion of the lot. There would be 2 additional lots with that new zoning that would be constructed on the east side. One would be a lot that has access onto Gentile. The other would be a lot that would have a flag lot type of a situation that would come behind that that lot on Gentile Street. So, of course, this is not a meeting where we're considering that subdivision. This any kind of approval of any kind of future development is contingent on you approving the zone change. This is consistent with your general plan. The general plan does designate this area as single family, and that is R110 is consistent with that low-density, single-family designation. This did go to the Planning Commission. It was reviewed by them and was recommended for approval by the council. Staff would also recommend that the council approve ordinance 22-11, approving this rezone request from A to R110. Be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Any questions?
I just have one question. The current driveway, can you go back to the, yeah. So this current driveway, this would be no longer a driveway and it would end up being a road potentially for these?
I haven't seen that conceptual plan, and all it is right now is conceptual, but they would have some type of a flagpole access. I'm not sure if they're proposing on that side or if it would be on the other side of the parcel, but potentially that could serve as a shared access in the future. It would not be a road, though. It would be some type of a shared access way if it was shared on that side.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, a shared driveway type of situation.
Councilman Roberts, did you have a question?
Just happy to see the existing home is staying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Significant house.
Great home.
And especially the barn out behind. Yeah. Okay, any other additional questions? Okay, I'll look for a motion to open the public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing for this rezone request. I don't see the numbers. For ordinance 22-11.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been moved in second that the public hearing is now opened. So anyone who wishes to make a public comment is welcome to come to the mic. Okay, seeing that we have zero comments at this time, we now need to take action where we close our public hearing and vote upon our ordinance 22-11.
Madam Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and approve ordinance 22-11, the rezone request from A to R110.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve ordinance 22-11. I'll do a roll call vote on this. So I'll start out with Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
I keep saying member, you're right. Councilman Bloxham.
Yes.
Councilman Morse.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smith Edmonton.
Aye.
Sorry, Edmondson. Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
Hey, it's unanimous, regardless of the enunciation. Okay, council, that pretty much brings our meeting to a conclusion. Do any of you have any unfinished business?
I've got one question. Is Steve here? Or is he gone?
He's
gone.
He's
Never
gone.
mind.
Yep.
I'm fine.
You're good?
Oh, yeah. Good all the time.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
Okay. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Thanks.
Whoever seconded?
Second.
Thank you. I bypassed that. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. Mr. Tudor, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hometown hero.